Have you ever wondered what it feels like when your entire life changes in a single second? Not because of something you planned, not because of a choice you made, but because of an accident so small, so insignificant, that you almost don't notice it happening. A wrong turn down a hallway, a stumble in the rain, sitting in the wrong place at the wrong time. Tonight, I'm going to tell you about Minji, a woman who made one innocent mistake on a stormy Wednesday evening in Seoul, and how that mistake led her straight into the arms of the most dangerous man in the city. This is a story about power, about survival, and about what happens when silence becomes the only thing keeping you alive. So settle in, turn up the volume, and whatever you do, don't move. Chapter 1. The Storm. The rain in Seoul that night wasn't just falling, it was attacking. Sheets of water hammered the streets, turning sidewalks into rivers and taxis into scarce treasures. Minji had been waiting for 20 minutes under a coffee shop awning, watching her rideshare app cycle through, searching for driver over and over again. Her interview had run late, the one she'd been preparing for all week, a position as a Korean English interpreter at one of the city's premier law firms. She'd worn her best blazer, the one that made her feel competent and professional, even though it was slightly too big in the shoulders. Now that blazer was soaked through. Her phone battery was at 8%, and her apartment was 40 minutes away by subway, assuming the flooding hadn't shut down the lines. "Oh, perfect," she muttered, shoving her phone into her bag. "Absolutely perfect." That's when she noticed the building across the street. Tall, modern, all glass and steel with warm light glowing from the upper floors. The kind of building that housed expensive restaurants, private clubs, places where people like her didn't belong. But it was dry, and right now dry was all that mattered. She made a run for it. The lobby was empty when she stumbled inside, gasping, leaving a trail of water across marble floors, so polished she could see her reflection. Security cameras watched from the corners, but no one stopped her. She headed for the elevators, intending to wait just long enough for the rain to ease up. Maybe find a bathroom, dry off, check her messages. The elevator doors opened immediately. She stepped inside, pressed the button for the second floor. Restaurants were usually on the second floor, right? And watched the doors slide shut. The ascent was smooth, so silent. When the doors opened again, everything felt wrong. The hallway was too quiet, carpeted in deep charcoal gray, lit by soft amber sconces that created more shadow than light. The air smelled like leather and expensive whiskey, with something sharper underneath. Tension, maybe. Or danger. Minji's instincts screamed at her to get back in the elevator. But before she could move, footsteps echoed behind her. Two men in dark suits rounded the corner, walking with the kind of purpose that suggested they weren't going to politely wait for her to decide. She stepped forward instead, into the lounge. The room opened up before her like a stage, low lighting, dark wood furniture arranged in intimate clusters, a bar along one wall, bottles gleaming like amber jewels, and men, at least a dozen of them, all wearing suits that cost more than her rent. Conversation died the moment she entered. Every head turned. She felt their eyes like physical weight, assessing, calculating, questioning what she was doing there. Minji's cheeks burned. She opened her mouth to apologize, to explain, to back out gracefully. But someone brushed past her shoulder. She turned instinctively, lost her balance in her wet shoes, and sat down hard. Except it wasn't a chair. Chapter 2. The Mistake. Her body understood before her brain did. Warmth beneath her. Solid muscle, not cushion. The slow, steady rise and fall of breathing. Oh God, oh no, she'd sat on someone. Panic flooded through her, sharp, electric, paralyzing. She needed to move. Seoul needed to jump up and apologize and maybe just throw herself out the nearest window because this was the most mortifying thing that had ever happened to her. But before she could do any of that, a voice reached her ear. Low, calm, certain. Don't move. 2 words. That's all it took for her entire body to freeze. The voice didn't belong to just anyone. She could feel that in the way the room changed around her. The air grew thicker, heavier. The quiet conversations that had paused when she entered now stopped completely. Someone coughed nervously. A glass clinked as it was set down with unsteady hands. No one laughed. No one even breathed loudly. They were all waiting. Minji's voice came out as barely a whisper. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. I know. The man beneath her spoke again, and this time she could hear something else in his voice. Not anger, not even annoyance. Amusement. But if you stand up right now, my associates might misunderstand your intentions. And that would be complicated. Complicated. That single word carried more weight than a threat. She forced herself to breathe slowly, to think through the fog of embarrassment and confusion. The man's arm rested along the back of the chair. She could feel it just behind her, close but not touching. His other hand was somewhere she couldn't see, probably holding a drink or resting on his knee. He wasn't grabbing her, wasn't holding her in place. The only thing keeping her there was his command, and her own sudden, instinctive understanding that moving without permission would be dangerous. What's your name? The question caught her off guard. Minji, she answered automatically. Lee Minji. A pause. She felt him shift slightly, adjusting his position in a way that made her more stable, more comfortable, despite the absurdity of the situation. Well, Minji, you've just made this party significantly more interesting. Behind her, someone laughed nervously. The sound was cut short immediately. Do you know where you are? Minji shook her head slightly. Good. Keep it that way. She didn't understand what he meant, but she nodded anyway. When I tell you to stand, you're going to walk straight to the elevator. You're not going to look back. You're not going to apologize again. You're going to leave like you belong here. Understand? Yes. Good girl. The words shouldn't have sent a shiver down her spine, but they did. Chapter 3. The Man. They sat like that for what felt like an eternity. In reality, it was probably less than 3 minutes. But time moves differently when you're perched on the lap of a stranger in a room full of dangerous men who are all pretending not to watch you. Minji kept her eyes forward, focusing on the bar across the room, counting bottles, watching the bartender wipe down glasses with meticulous care, never once looking in their direction. The man beneath her didn't speak again, but she was acutely aware of him, of his presence, of the way everyone in the room orbited around them like they were the sun, and these men were merely planets, held in place by gravity and fear. Who was he? The question burned in her mind, but she didn't dare ask. Finally, he moved, just a slight shift of his weight, a subtle signal that only she could feel. Stand up slowly. Walk to the elevator. Don't run. Minji rose on trembling legs. The room remained silent. She took one step, then another, forcing herself to move with confidence she didn't feel. Her wet shoes squeaked slightly on the polished floor. Her heart hammered so loudly she was certain everyone could hear it. But no one stopped her. No one said a word. She reached the elevator and pressed the button with a shaking hand. The doors opened immediately. Too immediately, like they'd been waiting for her. She stepped inside, turned around. And for the first time, she saw him. He was still seated in the chair she'd accidentally claimed, leaning back with one arm draped casually over the armrest. dark hair pushed back from his face, sharp jawline, eyes that caught the amber light and turned it into something that looked almost gold. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe early 30s, and devastatingly handsome in the way that dangerous men often are, all clean lines and controlled power. He was watching her, not with anger, not with irritation, with curiosity. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second. He raised his glass slightly, a toast, or perhaps a farewell. The elevator doors slid shut. Minji collapsed against the wall, gasping for breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. What just happened? The elevator descended smoothly, silently, while her mind spun in circles trying to make sense of the last 10 minutes of her life. She'd sat on someone's lap. He'd told her not to move. She'd obeyed, and then he'd let her walk away. That was it. That was the whole story. So why did her hands still shake? Why did her heart still race? Why did she feel like she'd just survived something, even though nothing bad had actually happened? The elevator reached the ground floor. The doors opened, and Minji walked out into the rain without looking back. Chapter 4. The Message. She didn't stop walking until her lungs burned. The rain had eased to a drizzle, but she barely noticed. She was too busy replaying every second of that encounter, analyzing every word he'd said, every subtle shift in tone. Don't move. You're safe, for now. Good girl. Who talked like that? Who had that kind of authority that an entire room fell silent just because he told one soaking wet woman not to stand up? Minji finally slowed down when she reached a convenience store. The fluorescent lights felt harsh after the dim amber glow of that lounge. She bought a bottle of water she didn't want and stood under the awning, trying to decide what to do next. Her phone vibrated. She pulled it out, expecting her mother or maybe her roommate, asking where she was. Unknown number. Her thumb hovered over the notification. She opened it. You chose the wrong seat tonight. Minji's blood turned to ice. Her fingers were numb as she stared at the screen. How did he get her number? She hadn't given it to anyone, hadn't filled out any forms, hadn't even spoken to anyone except... Another message appeared. Most people don't walk away from that mistake. Then, you were lucky. And finally, this time. She should delete it. She should block the number and forget this entire night ever happened and never, ever go near that building again. But instead, she found herself typing. Who are you? The response came immediately. The man whose lap you sat on. Obviously. Despite everything, despite the fear and confusion and lingering adrenaline, Minji almost laughed. I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to. I know. You already said that. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. I'm saying it again because it's important. Why? Because if you'd done it on purpose, you'd be dead right now. Minji's hands shook so badly she almost dropped her phone. Who are you? Someone you should stay away from. Then why are you texting me? Another long pause. Good question. She waited, watching the screen, holding her breath. I'm going to give you a choice, Minji. Her name. He'd remembered her name. You can delete this number and pretend tonight never happened. Go back to your life. I'll make sure no one bothers you. Or you meet me tomorrow. Let me explain who I am and what you walked into. Or what you need to know to stay safe. That sounds like a threat. It's not. It's a warning. Minji stood under that convenience store awning for a long time, rain dripping from the edge of the roof, neon lights reflecting in puddles at her feet. Every logical part of her brain screamed to delete the number. This was how people got hurt. This was how mistakes became disasters. This was how young women ended up in situations they couldn't escape. But there was something else. Something quieter. A voice that whispered, "What if you need to know? What if whatever she'd stumbled into tonight wasn't over? What if walking away wouldn't actually keep her safe, but would only leave her ignorant and unprepared? What if the most dangerous thing she could do was pretend this never happened?" Her thumbs moved across the screen before she could stop them. "Where and when?" The response was immediate. "Tomorrow, 3 p.m. There's a tea house in Bukchon, Suyon's garden. Come alone." Chapter 5. The Meeting. Minji didn't sleep that night. She lay in her small apartment, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she was about to make the biggest mistake of her life. By morning, she'd convinced herself not to go. By noon, she'd changed her mind. By 2:45 p.m., she was standing outside Suyon's garden, hands clenched around the strap of her purse, trying to decide if it was too late to run. The tea house was tucked away in one of Bukchon's narrow alleys, the kind of place tourists walked past without noticing. Traditional wooden architecture, a small garden visible through the front windows, paper screens creating private corners inside. Minji pushed open the door. He was already there. Seated in the back corner, partially hidden by a decorative screen. A pot of tea sat on the table in front of him, 2 cups waiting. In daylight, or at least in the soft, natural light filtering through the tea house windows, he looked different, less intimidating, more human. But his eyes were the same, sharp, intelligent, weighing everything. He stood when she approached. See, a gesture of old-fashioned courtesy that seemed at odds with everything else about him. "You came." "I'm an idiot," Minji replied. He smiled, actually smiled. "Maybe, or maybe you're smart enough to know when ignorance is more dangerous than knowledge." He gestured to the seat across from him. Minji sat slowly, keeping her bag in her lap, ready to run if necessary. "My name is Kang Dae-hyun, and before you ask, yes, that Kang family." Minji's stomach dropped. She'd heard the name. Everyone in Seoul had heard the name. The Kang family controlled half the underground business in the city. Protection, information, money laundering, and, rumor had it, though nothing was ever proven, occasional contract enforcement that went beyond legal boundaries. They weren't the mob, not exactly. They were something older, more organized, more embedded in the city's foundation than any criminal organization had a right to be. "Oh God," Minji whispered. "Breathe. I'm not going to hurt you." That's what people say right before they hurt someone. He actually laughed at that. Fair point. "Last night, you walked into a private meeting. We were conducting business with representatives from 3 other families. Delicate business. The kind where everyone's on edge and looking for any sign of disrespect or betrayal." Minji's hands tightened around her cup. "When you sat on my lap, several things could have happened. My rivals could have seen it as a planned distraction. My own people could have seen you as a threat. Someone could have pulled a weapon." "But you stopped them," Minji said quietly. "I did." "Why?" He tilted his head, studying her. "Because you were terrified, and real threats don't look terrified. They look confident." "So I'm safe now? It's over?" Dae-hyun's expression shifted, became more guarded. "Not exactly." Her chest tightened. "The problem is that several people at that meeting now think you're connected to me, that you're under my protection. Some of them will respect that. Others—" He trailed off meaningfully. "Others will see me as leverage," Minji finished. "Yes." She set down her cup with trembling hands. So what am I supposed to do? Hide? Leave the city? No. You live your life normally, but you stay aware. And if anything unusual happens, anyone following you, strange messages, anything, you contact me immediately. He slid a business card across the table. No name, just a phone number embossed in black. This isn't fair. I didn't ask for any of this. I know. If I could undo it, I would. But I can't. So instead, I'm offering you what protection I can. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the afternoon sun broke through clouds, sending shafts of golden light across the wooden floors. Can I ask you something? Of course. Last night, when you told me to stand up and walk away, you could have just stood up yourself first. Let me fall. Made it clear I meant nothing to you. Dae-hyun's lips curved into a small smile. Yes, I could have. So why didn't you? He looked at her for a long moment, something unreadable in his expression. Because you reminded me that accidents still exist, that sometimes things happen without calculation or ulterior motive, that not everything in this world is a move in a game. He picked up his teacup. That's rare in my life, Minji. And I thought it deserved protection. Chapter 6. The Choice. Minji left the tea house with the business card burning a hole in her pocket. She told herself she wouldn't call unless she had to. She told herself this was just a precaution, a safety net, nothing more. She told herself a lot of things. But as she walked through Bukchon's winding alleys, surrounded by traditional houses and modern life blending seamlessly together, she couldn't shake the feeling that everything had changed. One accidental moment, one whispered command, and now she was connected, however tenuously, to a world she'd only heard about in rumors and news reports. The question was, what would she do with that connection? Her phone vibrated, not a text this time, a voice message from Dae-hyun. Her thumb hovered over the play button. She pressed it. I forgot to mention something. The tea you drank. It's called Jonggangsen. It means life force mountain. It's supposed to give you strength for whatever comes next. I have a feeling you're going to need it. Stay safe, Minji. The message ended. And that's where we'll leave Minji for now. Standing at a crossroads between the ordinary life she's always known and something far more dangerous. Because here's the truth about accidents. Sometimes they happen once and fade into memory, but sometimes, rarely, they become the first sentence of a story you never expected to live. The question is, which kind was this? If you enjoyed this story, let me know in the comments if you want to hear what happens next. Does Minji stay safe? Does she see Dae-hyun again? And what happens when the protection he offered becomes something far more complicated? Hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next story. Until then, choose your seats carefully. You never know whose lap you might end up on.
Rain on the glass, I was running from the storm. Didn't know that shelter could leave me so warm. One wrong turn down a hallway painted gold. Now I'm holding secrets I was never meant to hold. Marble floors and amber light, strangers' eyes that burn too bright. I fell into a world I can't unsee. one wrong turn. Now it's following me. They say accidents fade like smoke in the air, but some mistakes become the cross you bear. One moment, 1 second, one innocent fall, and suddenly you're standing with your back to the wall. It only takes one wrong scene, one whisper word, one heartbeat to change the story of your life complete. It only takes one wrong turn, one bridge across, one page to burn. Some lessons are meant to be learned. One wrong seed and the whole world tilts beneath your feet. One wrong seed. He said don't move, like he was saving my life. His voice was velvet, wrapped around a knife. Golden eyes that saw right through my skin. Where does protection end and danger begin? A business card with just a number there, a warning dressed up like he'd ever care. Now every shadow looks a little more aware, and I'm breathing different air. They say some doors were meant to open wide, but now I'm standing on the other side. One moment, 1 second, one innocent mistake, and suddenly there's everything at stake. It only takes one wrong seed, one whisper word, one heartbeat to change the story of your life complete. It only takes one wrong turn, one bridge you cross, one page you burn. Some lessons are meant to be learned. One wrong seed and the whole world tilts beneath your feet. So I'm sleeping, but I'm wide awake, wondering which choice I'm about to make. Delete the number, pretend I never knew, or dial it up and see this whole thing through. He said, I reminded him that accidents exist, that not everything's calculated risk, but in his world nothing's ever really free. So what exactly does he want from me? It only takes